Good morning, namaste. Uh, Ram, welcome. We start with the day 5 and over to you, Ram.
Are we doing the meditation, Anurag?
We can do it. If time permits, we can do it, Ram.
Please, let's start with that. Very nice.
It gives a beautiful start to the whole session, your meditation, Swati.
Absolutely, Swati. We must do that.
You know?
And close our eyes. Another deep breath in and out. One more deep breath in and out.
Can't hear very clearly, Swati.
Okay. And just be a little louder.
Thank you.
Audible now?
Yeah, better now.
Begin again. I take a few deep breaths in and out. I sit comfortably and relax. I close my eyes if I wish, relaxing all the muscles in and around the eyes. I relax and observe my breath as it flows in and out. I now focus on my toes. If there is any tension in the toes, I allow it to relax. I relax my ankles, calves, knees, and the muscles of my thighs. I observe my thoughts, and if there are any, I let them float up and away into the sky. Now, I relax my hips, sacred zone, and begin to notice any tension I may have in my back. I breathe in deeply, and as I breathe out, I release any tension I may have in my back. Now, I bring my attention to my shoulders. I lift them up and relax them completely. I relax the muscles of my neck and jaw. If I find them tensed, I open my mouth a little. I let go of any tension I'm holding in that area. Finally, I bring my attention to the top of my head. I raise my shoulders up one last time, and as I release them, any remaining tension flows out of me. I begin with the chanting of the sacred name, Krishna, 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 Krishna. I imagine a ray of light in the center of my head, manifesting the energy of Krishna, activating the ancestral wisdom within me. I chant Krishna to concentrate this energy. Krishna, 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 Krishna 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 Krishna. The energy of Krishna helps me to understand that the family I live with is the family I chose to learn my life lessons. Each one of them represents facets of me. As a soul, my goal is to develop within me their qualities and transcend their weakness, whether positive or negative. I accept it as my heritage. I now visualize a conflict which I experienced within my family or friend. For a few moments, I live all the emotions, feelings, and situations that I experienced through this conflict and come back to myself. What bothered me in their behavior, in their attitude, was the behavior I inflicted on the other in this lifetime or in another life. Live your emotions, live the situation fully now, and let it go. I bring in the light of the divine to the situation to harmonize the conflict. I chant Krishna, 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 Krishna. I request the divine to give me the strength to understand these difficult life lessons and give me the gift of forgiveness and letting go of the grudges, letting go of the expectations, letting go of all that I hold towards the other. For the rest of the meditation, I concentrate on the fragmented aspects within me that reflect on the outside. When I'm no longer put out by a situation or a negative attitude of the other, then I know my soul is at peace. As I chant Krishna, I let go of all the past grudges that I hold in my heart towards my family and friends of this life or from previous lives. Krishna, 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 Krishna. I regain peace, love, and harmony in all my relationships within and without. My heart is at peace and experiences love, joy, bliss, and harmony. Krishna, 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 Krishna. I let go of images, if any. I rub my palms and put them on my eyes. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Coming back to the here and now. Welcome back.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Let's begin the chapter with invoking the blessings of Krishna and ask him to guide us. Swati, that was a very beautiful meditation. Thank you so much, because in this particular chapter, at the end of it, Krishna actually talks about how do you meditate and what do you do. So very, very relevant to today's chapter. So Shubhodaya, Namaskara, good morning, welcome to this continuing journey of ours as we explore the Bhagavad Gita. This is a very interesting chapter, chapter 5, because what happens is that there are so many seeming contradictions that happen within the chapter. It's a small chapter, it's very, very small. It's only about 28 odd verses, unlike the mega chapters, which are chapter 2 or chapter 18. But still, it's a very power-packed chapter. So today, let's begin by looking at this particular chapter. So the chapter starts with Arjuna asking Krishna a question. You know, as I told you yesterday, there are so many layers to our conditioning. And what Krishna does is that, he kind of starts helping us to peel off each of those layers. So the Arjuna who's sitting in front of Krishna there is someone like us. And Krishna is really the Bhagavad Gita, the timeless message of the Bhagavad Gita. So all of us sitting there are like an Arjuna there. And there is this Krishna, in the form of the Bhagavad Gita that is actually speaking to each one of us. So Arjuna asks a very important question to Krishna. He says, "Oh Krishna, tell me, you allude, at points of time. In chapter 3, in 17, you talk about the person who, delights in the soul, and therefore you are completely, contented with your own soul. And then again in chapter 4, you talk about the fact that destroy with the sword of, wisdom, all the ignorance that surrounds us. So is there a contradiction here? What do you want me to do? Do you want me to become a sannyasa, or do you want me to become a karma yoga? What is it that you're advising me to do?" Now you have to remember where Arjuna is coming from when he asks this question to Krishna. At a point of time, he and all of us want to take the easy way out. And we want to renounce all actions. And we say, this is something which I can't do. So can I just give all this up and then, become a sannyasa somewhere and, take not to doing any kind of an action? Can I become a sannyasa? Can I actually, follow the glorious traditions of those who have given up everything, whether it is the fruits or whether it is the actions or whether it is the fruits of the actions, and live life like that? And, this is something that, keeps coming to all of us again and again. From today's context, if we see, sometimes you get into this situation of a doubt saying, can I actually do this? Is it better for me to give this up and not pursue this kind of an action? Maybe this is not meant for me. Maybe this is not something that I can do. So So this whole chapter, the setting of this chapter is this, that, is there an inherent contradiction between adopting the path of sannyasa, which is renunciation, and the path of being a karma yoga, which is the path of action?
Ram, your voice is not audible.
Okay, can you hear me now? Is this better?
No, it's clear, Ram.
Okay. Can you just mute people?
It's breaking in between.
Just hold on 1 second now.
I think issue at your side.
Ram,
Ram, you can unmute yourself now.
All right. So can you all hear me? Is it possible? Can we go ahead?
Good, Ram. You can go ahead.
All right. So there is this basic contradiction, as I explained, between all of us. Should I do this? Should I not do this? And if I do, then how can I actually go about doing it? Is it something that I should pursue or not? And we picked this chapter up with verse 2. And Srini, with your help, can you bring up verse 2 for me, please? Yeah, and brilliant site by IIT Kanpur and Sri Brahmananda ji. We hear the verse being recited, and if you can all recite with me, please.
Ayosu karma samyagade karma yogo vitri bhagavano vacha sanyasa karma yoga cha nishreyasa karabudho ayosu karma samyagade karma yogo vinishyate.
So here, Anurag, will you read the Hindi Anuvad for me, please? I think you need to put the slide up.
भगवान बोले, कर्म संन्यास और कर्म योग दोनों ही श्रेयकारी, परंतु उन दोनों में भी कर्म संन्यास सांख्य योग से कर्म योग श्रेष्ठ है.
So what is he saying? He clarifies. He says that, look, while both, which is sannyasa, which is renunciation, and the path of karma yoga, both will lead to the supreme soul, which will lead to your supreme goal. There is no doubt about that. But the point is that we as ordinary human beings, as the common man, we will find it very difficult to renounce all actions. We will find it very difficult to adopt a path of sannyasa in life. And this is not meant for us. This is for those superior souls who manage to, who get into this with a situation, with a feeling of tyaga and say, I will renounce everything that I'm doing, primarily because this is not for me. But we are mere individuals. We are mere common men. And therefore, as common men, how can we renounce all the actions that are there? How can we adopt a path of sannyasa, which is very, very difficult? And, you can see, for instance, in certain religions, there are people who do this and do this very successfully, but they're evolved souls, not for people like you and me. So Krishna's advice to us is this, that look, we need to get into action. Karma yoga is something which is very important, especially when we are pursuing our swadharma. It becomes extremely important that we go ahead and do what is our swadharma, do what we need to do. Why do we need to do this? You see, we cannot wait for things to happen. We've got to go out and make things happen. We've got to take charge of our swadharma and then go and make those things happen. In many ways, there are three kinds of people. Yesterday, we talked about inaction, action, and reaction. There are people who wait for the rain. There are people who pray for the rain. There are people who prepare for the rain. And there are some of us who are rainmakers. One of the things that Roundtable has taught me is this, that round tablers are rainmakers, lady circle members are rainmakers, 41ers are rainmakers, tangent members are rainmakers. We go and make the rain. We don't wait for the rain. We don't pray for the rain. And in the process of making, the rain, there are lots and lots of different kinds of people who will benefit. Some who are prepared, some who are unprepared, some will benefit even more than you do. But it doesn't matter. Let us go out and make that rain. Let us make sure that the kind of work that we do, we become rainmakers. And this is Krishna's advice to us in this entire verse, saying, don't wait for the rain. Don't pray for the rain. Don't hope against hope that there will be rain, but go and become a rainmaker. And then he goes on to elaborate from chapter 3 to verse 3 to verse 7. He goes on to say that, look, when you're doing this, perform this action in a selfless way, free from all bondage. And this is his central message again and again and again. Don't get so attached to the outcomes of your action. Don't get so attached to the manifestations of the outcomes of the actions that you perform, that if you can get free of those bondages of desire, then you can really, really perform this action in a way that you're supposed to be doing. Okay? And therefore, there is no conflict between these two paths. Renunciation, sannyasa, and karma yoga are two sides of the same coin. But you have to choose, because you're a man, you have to choose the action that you need to perform. Okay? Remember again, going back into just the context of the entire war. Arjuna is telling Krishna, look, I want to renounce. I don't want to take this fight up. I want to renounce. It is better to renounce and go away into the forest. It is better to seek arms. That is a false thought that is there in Arjuna. And that is what Krishna is addressing, this aspect of Arjuna and this aspect of us too. Saying, don't get into this comfort zone that, maybe I shouldn't take up this fight. Maybe I shouldn't do what I'm supposed to be doing. Maybe I should just leave it and go away. Maybe that is a better option. And Krishna is telling us, no, if this is part of your Swadharma, my friend, there is no way that you can leave this and go away for the wrong reasons. If you do want to renounce all stuff, then do it in a positive way. But don't do it because you don't want to do it, but do it because you want to do it. So there are people, there are these evolved souls who have left everything and who have accepted sannyasa as a way of life. And within the Jains, you see so many people who are doing this all the time. But that is a conscious choice. They are not doing it because they don't want to do action, and therefore they are doing it, but they are doing it because they want to do it. Now that is a different thing altogether. That is also a kind of an action that they are taking up. To renounce everything is also a kind of an action, and that is what Krishna's central message to all of us is. That don't think that you can run away from what you're supposed to be doing. You can't. You must do what is supposed to be doing. So, to a man of knowledge, to become a man of knowledge, which is a sannyasa, which is a higher state of affair, it is impossible to do that without performing the action even of giving up in a selfless way. And that is the kind of message that Krishna is giving us here. Srini, will you help me by going to verse 8 and 9? So how do you perform this entire action that you need to perform in a selfless way? And this is the central message that he is doing. Will you be able to play that audio for us, Srini? While the slide is on, please.
Naiva kinchit karomiti yukto manyeta tattvavid pashyan shrunvan sprishan jigran ashnan gachan swapan shwasan.
The next one also, Shri, verse 9.
Kalapan visrajan grandhan unmisham nimisham nabi indriyani indriyarteshu vartanta iti dharayam.
मैं जरा सा भी करने वाला नहीं हूँ, ये मानते हुए तत्वज्ञानी देखते, सुनते, स्पर्श करते, सूंघते, खाते, चलते, सपने देखते, सांस लेते, बोलते, मल त्यागते, स्वीकार करते, पलकें खोलते, बंद करते हुए भी यही धारे रखता है कि इंद्रियां ही इंद्रियों के विषयों में बर्ताव कर रही हैं.
So this is the point. So how do you actually do the action that you're supposed to do. And here is a fantastic example that he's giving us, that don't think that you are the doer. Yesterday we talked about the fact saying, can you actually distance yourself from the actions that you perform? Is it possible for you to do something by which you can create that distinction between who you are and what you're doing? Is it possible actually for you to figure that out? And here is the whole point that he's saying. You know, there is this, when you get attached to the manifestations of your action, then you get into this feeling that I am the doer. I am everything. I am the person who's doing it. And there are so many people who will come and keep telling you, saying, wow, Ram Seshu, what a great speaker you are. And then, you suddenly get carried away by that entire thing, that I am the doer. And therefore, Krishna reminds us that, excuse me, you are not. Try and figure this out, because in every action that you perform on a day-to-day basis, and he lists out so many beautiful different kinds of actions, whether you see, whether you hear, whether you touch, whether you smell, whether you feel. And when you're doing all those activities, whether you're breathing, whether you're sleeping, whether you're eating, whether you're, whatever you're doing at that point of time, remember that there is this soul within you, there is your higher self within you, which is not doing anything. What you're doing is that your sense organs are merely interacting with the sense objects in front. So if you're hearing somebody praise you, remember it is just that. It is not you who's getting praised, but it is somebody else. Now, this is a slightly difficult concept for all of us to, for us to understand and figure this out. But this is something that we need to figure out, because this is an important part of the Bhagavad Gita, that I am not the doer. This sense of doership that plagues us in life leads us to some very, very interesting problems. So how can you be an observer and not a participant? Is it at all possible for us to do that? Now, it is going to take some time for us to wrap our minds around this particular concept. That, look, how can you be dispassionate? How can you be a participant and yet not be a participant? How can you be an observer and be a participant? And this is something which is very, very difficult that is going to happen. Because when you do get involved, when you do become a participant in whatever you're doing, remember what he talked to us about a little earlier, saying that you are now going to set yourself up to get into those 6 sins, which is if you're not going to find somebody praising you. So here is the thought for all of us. Let us say you perform an action, and there is a certain outcome of that particular action. And there is a manifestation of that particular action that happens, which everybody comes and praises you, saying, very good, you've done extremely well, or this is very tasty, or this is very beautiful, or this is a great creation, or you sung very well, or whatever it is. The more and more you get attached to that, the more and more your action starts going. I'll give you a very interesting case in point. I was talking to a very, very, very promising cricketer in the 90s and the 2000s. This is a great bowler. I won't name him today in this forum. The great bowler. And here was a young man from Karnataka, and he was telling me, he said, sir, I used to stay far away from where the cricket ground was, from where I used to get over. Take a train, go to the closest place where the coaching was. I used to reach there by 6. I used to practice. And then I used to take a train again at 9 o'clock, reach back home by 11, attend my school or college, go back in the evening at 3 o'clock by that train, reach back to that coaching ground by 4:30 or so, 1 hour away, and then start practicing again. And because I put in those hard years, sir, I managed to break into Karnataka, and then I managed to break into the Indian team, and I was a very successful bowler. He was a great spinner. And then I said, what happened to your life after that? And he said, sir, the minute I got there, the minute I started playing for India, the first thing I was advised, move away from this particular thing. And then all the manifestations of this started. The party started, the good things started, the good life started. And I stopped doing what got me there, which is the practice that I was doing on a daily basis. I used to practice 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours every day. And slowly I stopped practicing. And after playing for India for a year or 2, I slowly got into a decline. Now this is really, really the problem that we are having. If you can figure, and this is exactly what happens to so many of us. that this spirit of doership completely takes over our entire thought process. And therefore, once it takes over our entire thought process, we allow the ego to start coming in. And with that, we get completely detracted from what is our Swadharma and what we need to be doing and what we need to do to achieve what we need to be achieving in life. And that really is something that we need to completely avoid. So, he goes on to explain this, that if you're not the doer, okay, there's a very famous verse in the Gita which says, if you're not, how can you practice that? And he gives us so many interesting examples that we see on a daily basis. He talks about the lotus leaf, the lotus which is in the pond, the leaf which has water, but the water just flows off the lotus leaf and it doesn't get attached to the water that it is in. It rises above the pond, whether it is a beautiful pond or whether it is a pond full of dirt, it doesn't really matter. And the lotus is just as beautiful as it is. And whatever falls on that lotus leaf, nothing but nothing will affect that particular lotus leaf. Okay? So when things are not going the way we think they should be going, here is a great lesson for all of us. Okay? That when things are not going the way they go, but that you hope it should go, when things are not progressing as per what you wanted to go, and you're not getting those outcomes, you're not getting those results that you'd like, that is the time when you need to focus your mind and say that, look, how can I actually get into a zone by which I can continue to pursue my actions and believe that this is something which is going to happen. So Srini, I'll need your help. Can we go to verse number 11, please? Because from 11 to 14, he's explaining about the mindset of a man of selfless action. How does this person perform selfless action? In what way can he perform selfless action? With the feeling that I am not the doer, I am a mere instrument following and pursuing my Swadharma. Srini, will you play the...
Yoginah karma kurvanti sangam tyaktva shuddhaye.
Anurag?
कर्म योगी आसक्ति का त्याग करके केवल ममता रहित इंद्रियां, शरीर, मन, बुद्धि के द्वारा केवल अंतःकरण की शुद्धि के लिए ही कर्म करते हैं.
So just hold this slide, Srini, for a minute. If you remember, there is a very famous shloka that all of us have got used to repeating. Kayena vacha manasendriyeva buddhyatmanavas, prakriti sabhava. If you remember that beautiful, verse, this is actually linked very closely to this particular verse that he is talking about. That whatever you're doing, okay, kayena vacha, which is whether it is all the things that you do in life, can you actually do it in a feeling that this is being done with a higher purpose in life? And what is this higher purpose that we've been exploring for the last 5 days? It is your Swadharma. It is the fact that you need to figure out a way of doing everything that you do. So whatever actions that you perform, whether it is with the body, whether it is with your senses, whether it is your mind, whether it is intellect, if you can perform all these actions in a way that your Swadharma is getting actualized, that you are doing what you're supposed to be doing, that is really something which you can figure out and move to. So a little later, he talks about the fact that how can you get distracted from this? And he talks about, again, a very interesting concept. He talks about the 9 gates that are there in our body. And it is these 9 gates that interact with the outer world. Okay, so what are these 9 gates? He talks about the 2 ears, the 2 eyes, the 2 nostrils, the mouth, okay? And he talks about the skin, and he then goes on to talk all these in the head. And then, of course, he talks about the 2 lower parts, which is the excretion and the generation part. And he says it is these 9 things that will engage your attention. Now, keep a watch on all of this. So if you whatever you're doing, make sure that the senses that will engage, and is it possible for you to sit down and say, I will not engage with the world? No, it is not possible. You will engage with the world. If somebody praises you, are you not going to acknowledge it and feel good and smile? Of course you're going to feel good. If you make a great dish and somebody tastes that dish and has that dish, aren't you going to feel happy about it? Of course you're going to feel happy about it. We're human beings. We have a right to do so. But is it possible for us not to get carried away while we are getting into that area? So somebody will praise us, somebody will criticize us. That is but normal, that is natural. But can you make sure that you don't get attached to that entire action so that you can figure out a way of, you can get a certain perspective into saying that, look, whatever action I am performing, it is an action that I am performing with a certain higher purpose. It is to actualize my entire Swadharma and not get carried away by this entire praise or by the fact that, somebody is criticizing whatever I'm doing. And if you can then start making sure that when you work on your Swadharma, you realize that there is a higher purpose in my life and I need to go and achieve that particular higher purpose in my life. If that can be done, there is no doubt about the fact that we are moving very well to that. Srini, with your permission, verse number 15, please.
नागते कस्यचित् पापम् न चैव सुकृतं विभुः अज्ञानेनावृतं ज्ञानम् तेन मुह्यन्ति जन्तवः.
Anurag ji? Anurag, you need to unmute Anurag if you don't mind. Anurag? Okay, Anurag is, we've kind of lost Anurag. Anurag, are you there?
Yes, Ram, now the slide is gone.
Able to put that slide again? I'm sorry. I just want Anurag to read the Hindi. Right, Anurag?
ओके ईश्वर न तो किसी के पाप कर्म और न ही किसी के पुण्य कर्म को ग्रहण करते हैं. अज्ञान से ढके ज्ञान के कारण मनुष्य इसमें भ्रमित रहता है.
Okay, so look at what he's saying, right? And we did explore this thought a little earlier that there is a God who's actually within you, right? He does not himself, he does not get involved with whether it is right or wrong, whether it is sinful or virtuous. Okay? He is not getting involved in all this. And likewise, because of the fact that our ignorance is covered, our ignorance covers our wisdom, we unfortunately get completely involved in all of this. So just let's explore this for a minute. You see, wisdom and ignorance are two sides of the same coin. It is up to us to decide which side of the coin that we would like to experience. Because it's both there at the same time. All the wisdom that is required in the world is within us. But it is our ignorance that is not allowing that particular wisdom to come to the fore. Okay? And it is up to us, he talks of jnanam and ajnanam. Okay? We choose. Therefore, we need to choose what we want to allow to come to the fore. Whether we want this innate wisdom which is there within us, or whether we want our innate ignorance to come out. And experience, when these manifestations keep happening, what is it that we would like to come? To perform an action, there is an outcome. To that outcome, there are manifestations. How are you going to react to those manifestations is entirely your call. Will you allow the wisdom within you that, look, I am doing this particular outcome because it is part of my Swadharma, there is a higher purpose in my life, so let me go on to explore that higher purpose of my life Is that what you would like to do? Or are you going to be someone who will allow those manifestations to so cloud your wisdom and that you get lost in those manifestations? There are so many examples we've heard from the film industry, for instance, of great actors, of great actresses, get so lost in the praise, get so lost in the manifestations that they lose the reason why they were there in the first place. That they are there because they are phenomenal artists. That they have the ability to get under the skin of a character and make sure that we are seeing that character come alive, whether it is on a stage, whether it is on a play, whether it is in a reading, whether it is on a film, whether it is in television. And that is why they become great actors. But then when these manifestations take over, then we start losing that particular higher purpose that we have. And that is really, really what is the disaster that can happen. So you need to constantly keep focusing on that. That the reason why you got here is because you got some amazing strengths. And by practicing those strengths, by putting those strengths into practice, you manage to get that particular outcome. Let us not get deluded by the fact that there will be praise, there will be criticism, but then it is your duty to be happy, and it is your duty to keep pursuing this path of your Swadharma. And that is what this particular verse number 15 is talking about, that we need to focus on acquiring whatever we've got in our life, right? He goes on to exploring how are the ways to discipline the mind. What do you need to do to discipline the mind? If this is just one way that he talks about. And then he goes on to talk a lot about how your faith, your heart, your mind, your intellect, all must start getting aligned to the higher purpose of your life, to your Swadharma. If you can do that, there is simply nothing that you can't achieve in this world. Srini, we'll move to verse number 18, please.
विद्या विनय संपन्ने ब्राह्मणे विहस्तिनि सुनिचैव स्वपाके च पंडिता समदर्शिनः.
Look at the statement. Anurag, will you do the typical Hindi anuvad, and then we'll explore this in a little detail. Anurag, you need to unmute, please. Why is it that whenever he's trying to unmute, we lose the slide?
Anurag, just hold on a minute.
You need to unmute.
Okay, now you can unmute yourself.
He's not able to unmute, is it? Keep him unmuted, Srini. Doesn't matter.
He's
Can you put up the slide again, please?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you show the slide to us, please? Yeah. Yes, Anurag.
ज्ञानी महापुरुष विद्या विनय युक्त ब्राह्मण में और चांडाल में तथा गाय, हाथी एवं कुत्ते में भी समरूप परमात्मा को देखने वाले होते हैं.
So this is another very interesting, shloka. When he says, why are you bringing things like a dog, a cow, an elephant, a dog eater? I mean, what do you mean by this? Okay, and there is a need for us to go beyond, what is written, and this is the whole point of the Gita, that when you start discovering that there is something far more. So what does he say? He says you need to act. How will you keep moving on the path of your Swadharma? Obviously, when you get into a situation where you get into an attitude of acceptance, so whoever you encounter, you may be encountering a Brahmana. Who is a Brahmana? A wise person. Who is a cow? A cow is a provider. It provides you with milk. Who is an elephant? An elephant is someone who's a self-absorbed person, who's just walking, as it is. Who is a dog? Somebody who could be barking at you, or somebody who could be loving you unconditionally. It could be one of these two people. If it's a street dog, is obviously going to be barking at you. If it's a dog that is at home, it's a pet, it loves you unconditionally. Okay. If it is somebody who's, who serves you, all of these people, whether it is a provider, whether it is a self-absorbed person, whether it is a wise person, whether it is someone who loves you unconditionally, whether it is someone who's barking at you, because a person, an evolved person, has this attitude of acceptance, and all of these people can help you on your path of your Swadharma. Don't think anybody is any less in life. And here is a very, very important learning to us from the Gita. If you want to learn, if you want to figure out how can you move on, you will need this lesson in humility, because you have to figure this out saying, I will learn from whoever is going to come in my way. Just because it is a dog, I am not going to shoo it away. Okay? Whoever is the person there, I will develop this attitude that I'm here to learn, because this learning attitude will help me move on the path of my Swadharma, which is what I want to achieve, which is the happiness that I want to achieve. So start accepting people as they are when they come to you. Don't shake people away. And why should you do that? He then moves on to talk from, verse 20 to 24. He talks about happiness and how can you actually be unperturbed in life, and how can you figure out a way in which you are going to be happy. So he talks about the fact that you should be unperturbed when you face an obstacle. Don't lose your equanimity if you face an obstacle. Remember, obstacles are good in life because they will help you learn. It's a learning experience. When you fall, it is not the end of the earth. It's just another way in which you're going to be learning what you need to be learning. Or how can you look within and start finding things that you need to figure out, again, that you will find happiness in. Not getting carried away by the external world. Okay? And this is again something that we explored a little while earlier, because the external world has a beginning and an end. Whereas your Swadharma, what you want to achieve in your life, there can be never any end to that, or there can never be any fact with that. Or being completely contented. So when we started this whole thing, we said, okay, how are you going to be happy in life? And there is a beautiful definition of happiness that Krishna shares with all of us in verse number 24. Srini, Anurag, can you unmute yourself, please? Anurag, please unmute yourself, Anurag.
He is done.
योस्तसुखोत्तरारामः तथान्तर्ज्योतिरेव यः स योगी ब्रह्मनिर्वाणम् ब्रह्मभूतोऽधिगच्छति।
जो अपने ही अंदर रमा हुआ अनंत सुख और स्पष्टता को अनुभव करता है, वो योगी ब्रह्म स्वरूप हुआ ब्रह्म को पा जाता है.
See what he's saying. Those who are happy within themselves, enjoying the delight of the God within, are illuminated by the inner light. Such yogis are united with the Lord and are liberated from material existence. The yogi that he is talking about is really you and I. Okay, not the yogi from the sannyasa perspective, but he is talking about we who are yoga and yogis. Yogis are people who are performing action, people who are actually pursuing action and are figuring this out. So look at the beauty of this statement. Okay, that if you are happy within yourself, if you look inward, you will find happiness. And how do you look inward and find happiness? When you're working on what is important to you in your life, which is your Swadharma. And that's why, if you recall some time back, we talked about this fact that happiness lies within. Happiness is about wanting what you have, not having what you want, because then you will start finding bliss. Because if your focus is on what you don't have, you will only find misery. And therefore, when you love what you do, you will do what you love. That is the message of this particular verse, which is a very, very important message to all of us. That love what you do. Just be completely besotted with what you do, because then you will do what you love doing. And that is, if you start loving your Swadharma and working on your Swadharma and taking action on your Swadharma, then you will find an immense amount of happiness within you. So he says, be like that sage. Try and see if you can keep the 6 enemies out, which is Kama, Krodha, Moha, Lobha, Mada, Moha, Matsarya. Try and keep them out. Okay? So that if you can keep these base emotions out, then you can get committed to work on what you need to be achieving and what is your path. So we come to the last 2 stanzas of this particular chapter. Srini, with your permission, 27 and 28, please.
स्पर्शान् कृत्वा बहिर्बाह्यान् चक्षुश्चैवान्तरे भ्रुवोः प्राणापानौ समौ कृत्वा नासाभ्यन्तरचारिणौ
Yes, Srini, go on.
यतेन्द्रियमनो बुद्धिः मुनिर्मोक्षपरायणः विगतेक्षाभयक्रोधः यः सदा मुक्त एव सः।
Rag?
जी, बाह्य पदार्थों को बाहर ही छोड़कर और नेत्रों की दृष्टि को भौहों के बीच में स्थित करके तथा नासिका में विचरने वाले प्राण और अपान वायु को सम करके जिसकी इंद्रियां, मन और बुद्धि अपने वश में हैं, जो मोक्ष परायण है तथा जो इच्छा, भय और क्रोध से सर्वथा रहित है, वह मुनि सदा मुक्त ही है.
Okay. So what is he saying? He's saying shutting out all thoughts of external enjoyment with the gaze fixed on the space between the eyebrows, the third eye, equalizing the flow of the incoming and outgoing breath, which is the pana and apana, in the nostrils, controlling the senses, mind and intellect. The sage who becomes free from desire and fear always lives in freedom. So this is his final statement to us in this particular chapter. This one way of interpreting this is the kind of, this is a route to meditation. And this is what Swati is doing so beautifully every day in the morning for us. That she takes us in a route of meditation. What is she saying? She's saying, close your eyes, control your breath, breathe in deeply, and the inflowing and the outflowing breath, let it be in harmony. This is one way of looking at it. But from our perspective is this, that when you're sitting down, when you develop this one-pointedness in life, when he says, fix your gaze between your eyebrows, what is he saying? Be one-pointed at that time. Okay? Completely focus on what you need to be achieving at that point of time. Focus on the action that you need to perform. Making sure that the incoming and the outgoing breath is in harmony. Another way of looking at the same thing is that you will keep getting a reaction to whatever your action is. And there will be something that you will be doing to continue with that particular action. Make sure that both are in harmony. Whatever is the reaction that is coming to your action or what you continue to do, make sure that they are in harmony. That is the whole point of the incoming and the outgoing breath. Can you keep this in harmony? This is another way of looking at it. One is to practice meditation, but the other is saying that, look, keep this one-pointedness. Make sure that you focus on what has to be done. And more importantly, you persevere. So 3 great lessons from these 2 stanzas. The importance of being one-pointed, focus, and perseverance. That if you were to continue to do this and persevere on restraining the mind, restraining the ego, don't allow it to run away. you will achieve the kind of greatness that you want to go ahead and achieve. And he ends this entire chapter by saying, adopt a mindset of non-doership. Learn how to give this whole thing up. And he says, as a common man, you can't renounce action. You need to be a man of action. And when you're a man of action, figure out a way of performing that action in a focused way, in a way that you will achieve what you want to achieve in your life. So this is a very important chapter. It's a small chapter, 28 odd verses. But if you see the kind of things that he is talking about is very simple, that we need to take action. You can't renounce action and run away for the wrong reasons. You need to perform your action. But more importantly, perform it without attachment. Don't get into the spirit of doership. Don't get engaged with the manifestations of the outcomes that are going to happen and lose your path. Lose the fact that you have to go to where you want to go to. Always keep focusing on your swadharma. And then more importantly, when you're performing these actions, perform it with a feeling of detachment, that whole thing about kayena vacha manasendriyava. So perform it in a way that you're saying, this is for a much, much higher purpose, that I'm actually performing my action. Remember this, you have all the wisdom within us. All that is available within us. Problem is that the ignorance is the other side of the coin that is there. The ignorance of your greatness, the ignorance of your strengths, the ignorance of your ability. What is it that you want to bring into play today? The ignorant you or the person of wisdom that is part of you? Who do you want to bring in today in the interplay? You have that choice. And how do you do that? You make sure that you are humble. Treat everybody alike. That is one way of bringing that wisdom out of you. That you will meet all kinds of people, but everybody that you meet, whether it is a cow or a dog or an elephant or whatever it is a learning experience and can help you get going. Don't allow the ignorant, don't allow the physical manifestations of the person that you're going to be meeting to cloud what you're going to be doing. The fact that happiness lies within. And more importantly, the last point that he talks about, that when you're working on this, be focused, be one-pointed, and persevere. And there is no doubt that you will achieve what you want to achieve in your life. And with that, we come to a close of the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, a beautiful chapter. Please read it. We will share the slides the way we've been doing. But now I am open to any observations, any thoughts, any things that you'd like to ask. Right.
Yes, koi questions, any queries?
Okay, now you can unmute yourself, whoever wants to ask question.
I have a question, Ram. I can't hear you. Yeah.
Yes, Vedanta, go ahead.
You had explained that Karm Yogi and Karm Sannyasi are two sides of the same coin. This was
Yes.
the first stanza, first verse, I think, which you explained.
Yes.
Can you just repeat? I didn't understand it properly.
What I was saying is that the sannyasa and the yogi, the karma yogi and the karma sannyasa, somebody who is renouncing the very form of action will also be able to realize the supreme self, like a karma yogi does. The challenge is that if you are doing it willfully, that is one part of it. But if you are doing it because you don't want to perform action, then that is not going to help you at all. Okay? So we are seeing so many examples, of historically till now, of people who renounced the whole world and who did it joyously, who did it because they wanted to do it. Okay? Now that is Arjuna says, I will not fight this war. It is better for me to go away into the forest. It is better for me to beg for alms. So what Krishna is trying to tell Arjuna is that, look, my friend, don't get deluded into this. Don't think that you can, become a sannyasa because it's a convenient way for you at this point of time. It is not. Okay? While both are good, if you pursue it properly. Okay? Even the act of renouncing all actions and the fruits of those actions is an action by itself. So he is making that fine distinction saying this, but he very clearly tells us that while both are great paths, for us as common people, we must choose the path of action because that is what will lead us to our spirit. That's what he meant.
Thank you.
Primarily what he's saying is escapism is no answer. You have to get up and face the day.
Absolutely, Rahul. So very
Essence of what you're saying is this.
So very well. And how do you do that? One is no escapism. But more importantly, when you're working on the path of your Swadharma, you will come across so many interesting examples of so many obstacles. So how do you handle those obstacles and how do you overcome? That is the central message of this entire chapter. This one and even the next one. He goes on in the next chapter to continue to explore this aspect.
Right.
How do you do that? But you're absolutely right. No, see, if you will, as I was telling you that I have a tremendous amount of admiration for the Jain community, where people are willingly, young kids, young people who are, renouncing everything and becoming monks, and that's amazing. But that's a very willing thing that they are doing. What Arjuna was trying to do here, Rahul, you're so right, was escapism. Now that is not going to work. That's the point.
So Ramji, I heard your session yesterday again, and I had some doubts, which quite of them got cleared just now. But I am trying to do this for my own self since 2018, of trying to, surrender with a lot of gratitude and not believing that, I am something and I'm going to be able to resolve a lot of things. I do have a lot of hope. I am trying on my bit. I do have a lot of hope. But somewhere that fear factor is just not going away within me somehow. I'm still very scared, and I'm still very not sure in the path that I am in. I mean, I am in it a lot, but I'm still very scared within myself.
So, Reshma, there is nothing wrong in being there, no, Reshma? First, accept it. That's okay. See, the minute we try and, either brush it under the carpet, or the minute you try and get aggressive with it, then you're going to run into trouble, Reshma. But if there is something that is making you fearful at this point of time, the first thing that I can tell you is please accept it. That's the message of the Bhagavad Gita, that just accept it first. Okay?
Okay.
Now, where does fear come from, Reshma? Okay? It comes from two things. I think we talked about it some time back, but it comes from two issues. One is chinta and the other is shokha. Okay? What is shokha? Shokha is things that have happened in the past. Right? That you feel sad about stuff that worked out in the past, or it didn't work out, or worked out, or whatever it is, or some action, something. Chinta is about the future. Okay? So this whole business of fear happens because either the sadness of the past, the shock of the past is clouding your today and making you fearful, or it is the over expectations of the future, which is the chinta part, what may happen in the future, that is again clouding your living in the now. So the one way to give up fear, Reshma, is to do this, is to first of all accept that I've got some amount of fear, which is fine, which is nothing wrong. Like, coming from the advertising business, I'm allowed to do this even in a Bhagavad Gita session. If you remember the Surf Excel ad which says "Dhag acha hai," right? If you remember that ad, Reshma, I say fear acha hai. There is nothing wrong with fear. Okay, a certain amount of fear is good in life, but it is how we handle that fear which is more important. So sit down, make a list of things that are making you fearful, Reshma. Okay, is it the
Fear
past?
of death, fear of death also today is so much within me. I don't know why I've become so much having fear of death, so much. I cannot handle deaths anymore. I mean, it really upsets me when somebody close to me has died, and then suddenly I go into a very shell, which is very difficult for me to get out of that for a while. The death fear is a lot. I don't know why.
So two things, Reshma. I mean, I think we explored this in chapter 2 when he very clearly talks about the fact that death is just is transitory, Reshma. You move from one plane to the other plane, number one. But what I will do for you, Reshma, is a little later call me and then we'll work on this fear of yours. Okay, that is
Yeah.
one thing that I can offer you.
Yeah,
But let
sure.
me tell you one thing, Reshma. The only certainty in life, the day you are born, there is only one thing which is certain, Reshma. And that is you're going to die.
Yes.
All of us are going to die. Okay, that is the ultimate truth. That is the ultimate reality of life. One day we're all going. Okay, that is number one. Number two, let me also tell you something, Reshma. When I lost my parents, I was devastated. I was completely devastated. Both my father and then 3 years later my mother. But and they were very worried about me, when they were dying, saying, "How will you manage?" But I've managed. Okay? And my sisters have managed. My family has managed without them. Right? So we cope, yeah. So don't be fearful. But then you need to work it out. You need to work on that and you need to get out of it. But there is nothing wrong with that. Let me tell you that. Okay? The fear of death is one of the greatest fears that everybody has. Okay? That what will happen after I go? Okay?
No, more than what I will go is how will I face it, because I'm so petrified that I feel as now I'm getting older, I feel it is more coming closer to me. So I'm scared of facing it. No, I'm not worried about what people will do after me, but I'm just worried how will I be able to face it. Somehow I'm not able to. I don't know. I have very mixed feelings, Ramji. I don't know whether I'm able to express to you the right thing, but
You need to work this out, Reshma. Therefore, you need to figure out. I mean, here is the lesson again from today, right?
yeah.
You need to get that wisdom within you to the fore, not the ignorance within you. Don't worry about what may happen, how will it happen, where will it happen, when is it going to happen, and all that, right?
Yeah.
But have that wisdom within you to work on your strength, saying that if it happens, I'll face it. When it happens, I'll face it. Where will it happen? I'll face it. So get that wisdom to come out. You're a fighter, right?
Yeah.
When you're a fighter, you say, okay.
This happened with me also. Don't worry. You will come out of it.
As and when it happens, I'll face it. Yeah.
No,
It is that wisdom that needs to be brought out, Reshma.
Yeah.
the very fact that you have recognized and acknowledged it is the first step towards working towards it.
Absolutely.
Yes, I will.
That's the whole point. When he says that, look, in verse 15 here, get the wisdom within you to the fore. Don't let the ignorance cloud your wisdom. Okay?
Yes.
We'll work on it. No issue.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Ram. Thank you.
And have the confidence that you can work on it, Reshma. That's important.
Yes, Ramji, I will. 100%.
Super.
Thank you.
Right. Any other observations? Any other thoughts? Any other shares?
Ram, in one of the texts you were talking about ego.
Yeah.
So what exactly is ego? Because in common parlance, we get confused with this word ego, and I don't think it's really understood by people.
Okay. What do you think is the meaning of ego?
What I mean, I have understood, and I feel ego is basically identifying with yourself and limiting yourself. You think you are this body and this person only, whereas basically you are the whole existence. I mean, all humans, all animals, the whole creation is part of you only.
Yeah. So,
So
you see this,
that
this
is what I feel. When you start differentiating between yourself and others, that is what is ego.
So let's take this.
Is that a
ego-
correct understanding?
Let's take ego, Vikrant, into another plane. Already. So there are three states that you can be in. Okay? If you take is it possible for anybody not to have an ego? No, you must have an ego. Okay, must have that, right? Ego is also another word for self-esteem. You must have a certain amount of self-esteem in life. That is something which is very, very important. Okay? So you can't be a person with no self-esteem. You have to have self-esteem. The problem is that the other two ends of it, low self-esteem or an inflated self-esteem. Okay? Now both are not right. Okay? There's nothing called an inflated self-esteem, I'm sorry. There is low self-esteem and self-esteem. Okay? So if your self-esteem is perfect, if you know who you are, if you know what you are, then your ego is helping you, propel you to move forward in life. But when you have low self-esteem can get expressed in two ways, Vikrant. One, you can become a very passive kind of a person, a doormat kind of a person, just accepting and just going with life. Or you can even be a very aggressive person. Both have low self-esteem. Now, what happens really is that when you become very aggressive, okay, our normal parlance on ego is that, somebody who's over-aggressive is somebody who has a huge ego. No, that is not the point. The point is that, both have a low self-esteem. Your aggression is being couched only because of the fact that you suffer from low self-esteem. Very easily we recognize people who are suffering from low self-esteem. That is easy. Why? Because we think they are those passive people who are, like doormats who are just, doing whatever we ask them to do in life. But that is not so. Okay? Even the guy who's overly aggressive is somebody who has a low self-esteem. And today, therefore, it is very important that we understand that when you're working on your Swadharma, and when your Swadharma is to find happiness in life, when you want to ultimately hit that, when you want to touch that happiness in your life, then it is very, very important that you work with a good self-esteem. You work with a high self-esteem, you believe in yourself, your ability to do things. You prepare, you believe that I'm prepared for the road that is ahead of me. That is something which is very, very important. Okay? So this whole issue of ego is misunderstood. So people say that, you can be ego. The whole idea is this, that be sure of yourself, work on what you want to work. Don't allow your low self-esteem to get away. A guy who gets away with a lot of, who gets carried away by praise, Vikrant, is a person with low self-esteem. Believe me. Okay? Right.
But Ram, I have a, continuation to this. You are saying a doormat, a person with low self-esteem is a doormat, but even a saint can be so, right? I mean, if you go to a Buddha, he will accept whatever you are saying.
Yeah, but a saint is very sure of himself or herself. The difference is that a passive person will just get pushed around. A saint will not. If I don't react to you, Vikrant, it doesn't mean to say that I'm a doormat. But if I accept what you're saying, okay, then I'm getting into a low self-esteem area, which makes me feel miserable. People who can't say no, for instance, who can't accept no, okay, are going to continue to be miserable in life. A saint is a very happy person. He's in his own zone. He says, yeah, you come, you want to abuse me, you abuse me. That is your prerogative. I have nothing to do. I'm not accepting your abuse. No? Okay? I will continue to pursue what I've got to pursue in my life. Right? So saint is not by any means Keep that in mind. Yes, Pankaj, you wanted to ask a question? Or you wanted to make...
No, it was a thought. Since the day I've started attending this morning session, my day goes well in the sense that I feel satisfied at the end of the day of whatever I have achieved. And somehow it has made me not try to achieve everything in a single day, you know. So once we do that, it's giving me a lot of satisfaction in the evening. I'm very happy. Second thing is I'm very thankful to the people who are asking questions here, because the questions here are like examples for whatever we are discussing today. And it gives a good perspective. Also, it brings a lot of humility to us, because all of us are same people and we have same type of, you know, doubts and fears and, you know, things in the mind. And these questions really help us answer our own questions in our mind. So I'm very thankful to the participants and the organizers here, and Srini and everybody here. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Pankaj. Only when you ask, you will know, Pankaj. You know, even and at some point of time, we will discuss this as we keep going along. You know, by the time we reach the 8th or the 9th chapter, okay, I mean, you know, believe me if I'm telling you this, that you can do a complete research, Pankaj. Pick up a copy of the Bhagavad Gita and just read Arjuna's questions. That's all. Don't read anything else. You know, just read Arjuna's questions and you will see the transformation of the individual. Okay? And mind you, Arjuna was a highly evolved soul. He was a great warrior. He was a, you know, he was everything. Okay? And from complete belligerence, okay, complete defiance right at the beginning, saying that I will not fight, boss, you do what you want. Okay? To the 8th or the 9th chapter, when he starts changing tack. You know, he starts questioning Krishna in a different way. And then finally, when, you know, he goes on to say, you know, when he sees his Vishwarupa, and then when he, so it's a study in itself. So the point is that even the ability to ask questions, okay, is such an important thing, saying that, you know, we may not find all the answers. That's okay. Like yesterday, Rajiv's question, I still have not got the answer that I want. I've got some part of the answer. So I'm not answering his question right now, but I'm still researching it. So the whole of yesterday was spent on trying to figure out, okay, what is this whole Vikarma and Akarma? Is Vikarma good or not? You know, is Akarma good or not? I mean, you know, I'm just trying to figure that out still. That's taking me into my own research. So that's, so the questions that are being asked is also a great way for us to clarify ourselves. It's a great thing.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I just have one thought here to share, Sankalp this side. And this is in continuation of what Vikrant, you know, just asked and, you know, shared. So when we talk about ego and, you know, in the context of Gita, we always talk about Sharir and Shariri, like, you know, you are not the body, but you are somebody who, you know, who belongs to a body, or vice versa. So then parallelly, there is a concept of alter ego as well. So how do you connect these two, you know, concepts, ego and alter ego, in the light of Sharir and Shariri?
So the point is that, you know, there is this inner self. That is what the Gita is trying to teach us, Sankalp, that there is an inner self within you. You know, there is this inner, higher soul that is manifested within you. Okay? And then there is this body, which is experiencing the outer world. Okay? So there are these two aspects of you. Likewise, the ego and the alter ego that you are talking about is exactly in the same bucket. Okay? There is one which is within you, and there is one which is manifesting itself to the outside. When both are in harmony, then you have no problem. So when this ego and the alter ego are in harmony, you're doing fine. But when they are not going to be in harmony, one is internal, the other is manifesting itself externally. So when both are not in harmony, Sankalp, then we are going to get into a problem area. Okay, so we need to keep recognizing what is right now very dominant. Okay, a little later we are going to explore this whole concept of the three attributes of nature. Okay, which is the Sattva Guna, the Raja Guna, and the Tamo Guna. We have not yet got there. And when we do that, you will understand this whole concept of what is within you actually, and what is your higher self, what is your baser self, okay, and how these selves keep interacting with you. We will explore that and we will understand that at length. But keep this in mind, that there is this inner self of yours, and there is this body that is manifesting and interacting with the outer world. Can both be in harmony is what Krishna's thought is to all of us. If it can, then we're moving well. That's the whole point, Sankalp.
Right. Thank you. So how I also understand this, like there is one aspect which is the sharir, the body part, and then you have shariri, which is the soul part, and the soul again has two facets. One is ego and another is alter ego. Is this right?
Well, in a way, yes. But what we're trying to say is that see, the whole point is this, that, whenever there is an imbalance in any of these aspects in our life, when your mind is saying something, your heart is saying something. Okay? That is when you're going to start getting into trouble. Okay? So it is always better to listen to the heart, which is your inner self, and get the mind which interacts with the outer manifestations, outer objects of the senses under control of the heart. So if you can get this alignment, that I think, without getting into a distinction amongst all of this, the challenge for all of us is to get that alignment right. If we can get that alignment right, I think we're doing okay. But that is work in progress. Is it going to happen tonight? It is not going to happen tonight. It will take time. It is not going to happen tonight. Okay? I have seen great Mahatmas, great saints, okay, completely lose it and get angry. And I've asked him sometime later, saying that, look, you're a Jnani, you're a Mahatma, you're not supposed to get angry. And he says, look, what do you do? I'm still a work in progress. Okay?
Yeah.
I've not reached there as yet.
Right. Durvasa ji was known for this.
So many of them, so many of them. Ultimately, I mean, Vishwamitra, all of these people were, so that's the whole beauty, that look, you got to keep working on it every day. My favorite joke on this is that, whenever I conduct a program, I tell my participants saying that, let me assure you, you know everything that I'm going to tell you about. Okay. But if you do meet someone who wants to stop learning, then it's time that he sends an SMS to the Almighty saying, boss, abhi yahan pe kuch baki nahi hai, le lijiye mujhe yahan se. Because what is the point of living here? I don't want to learn anything more. That's the whole point.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It is insightful. Thanks.
Ram, can you tell us what is Matsar?
Sorry?
What is Matsar? Moh Maya Matsar. What is Matsar?
Jealousy.
Okay.
So he says that there is this kama, which is greed. Okay? Uncontrolled greed leads to anger, which is krodha. And when you get into anger, you get into lobha. Okay? Lobha is greed, sorry. Kama is desire. Kama is desire. Then you get into anger. Then you get into greed. Greed, which is lobha. Okay? Moha is attachment. Okay? Then you get into jealousy. Okay? And then you get into pride. Mother, which is pride. Okay? So it is jealousy. Right. Shall we close today's session, Anurag?
Thank you, Ramji.
Thank you. So we'll see you all tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, 7:45. Please log in.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ram.
Please share this link, because I think some people are having some difficulty in transitioning from the old link to the new link, but please do share this link with So let's close this with again a prayer to Krishna. Saying,
Thank you.
Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya Namah. Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Thank you.
Thank you.